gotten these amazing partnerships since then just by being in the yes mentality of, yeah, I want to work with you, or going to a particular event and meeting the right person there. It's just been a hell of a journey. I think 2023 is going to be a huge year for us.
You're just funny. It's funny, the way you tell the story and everything.
Funny how?
Come here, though. Yeah, he's crazy, see? Who are you?
We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
Are you ready?
No, just kidding. Hey, thanks for tuning in, everybody. So today is going to be fun. I'll let Chris introduce himself, but on this show, we talk about health, wellness, social interaction. So Chris, I met in the DM, which is how all good conversations, I think, start. But he's got a really cool story about how he started his business, Sweat Deck, which got myself a couple decks. These things are awesome, especially if you're into fitness and don't really know where to start. It's kind of like a cool game you could play with yourself. So he is the founder, co-founder, with him and his partner. So I want him to talk about that business as well as what it's like running a business with your spouse, which I can relate to. So Chris, thanks for coming on the show, buddy.
Sir. Yeah, thanks for having me, Tony, man. This is sick. First podcast in the books.
This is your first podcast. That's right.
Ever. Yeah.
Hey. All right. Congrats, dude. That is, I'm honored and humbled. So thank you for choosing me to pop your cherry. It's very nice of you.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
So yeah, tell us a little bit about your business and you and how you kind of got this start. The floor is yours, my friend.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm Chris Dietrich. I co-own Sweat Deck with my fiance, Christy, up here in Seattle. And basically, I started this business with her in early 2018, after kind of a hard year in 2017. And it's just kind of been a fun journey that I'd like to tell on my social media accounts of how we got started and documenting the day-to-day grind of like, this is the beauty and the ugly of running a business. And I just think it's a cool perspective to share. So yeah.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah. Congrats on all this success. Cause I know, it's not easy starting a business naturally, but, with yours, why did you want to kind of dip into fitness and health? Have you always had kind of a passion for that industry?
Yeah. So I've been working out since I was 18 years old, when I was 5 feet tall and probably a $110. When I graduated high school, it's like,
so that's what I am now, 5 feet and a $110.
Yeah. But yeah, I was like, you know what, if I'm going to start talking to girls, I should probably look a little bit more fit, just get my self-esteem up. And, but as for Sweat Deck and getting into it, I had never really trained this style. So basically, to give you an idea of what Sweat Deck is, it's a deck of cards with program workouts on every card. It's not really weightlifting. It's more like cardio and interval training, AMRAPs and stuff like that. So here's an example. Nice. It's like 400-meter run, 15 jump squats, 15 push-ups for a 12-minute circuit. So it's super easy to follow. You just pull a card and go. But the backstory is, I think, really unique and really genuine. And that's probably why you wanted to have me on here to begin with. Yeah. In 2017, I contracted as a project manager for my day job. And I just had a really rough year with my career. The contracts were slipping. They were getting cut early due to budget. Project scope would change. I wasn't a good fit, and I just kind of sank into this dark place of depression where at the end of 2017, I was like not working out. I wasn't eating well. I was drinking more. And it was really waning on my relationship with Christy, where working out was our thing, right? We had that really ingrained as a pillar in our relationship. And so this really cool Christmas in 2017, she usually goes back home to Hawaii for like a month in December to go hang out with her family and warm back up. And we were kind of on the rocks at that point. So she made me this really bland version of what we have here. This deck of cards with program workouts on them as a gift for me to pull a card and know exactly what I'm going to do, but help get me back into the swing of things and the routine of working out daily. And she said, I knew it was serious because she goes, I need you to pull a card every day and I need you to track your progress, right? And then after a month, I'll come back and we'll see how you're doing and if you've got the routine going. And so she really wanted me to hold myself accountable.
Mm.
And I'm not going to lie to you, that first card was like a cascading pyramid of 50, 40, 30, 20, 10 reps, and then 10 burpees in between each exercise of those rep counts. So it's like
Gnarly
squats,
workout.
sit ups, yeah, lunges, the fundamentals. But it took me 36 minutes to finish that workout. I was so out of shape with cardio that I've got it down to like 6.5 minutes now. So it's like
That's
I've seen
awesome.
tremendous success in a nice pendulum swing since then. But
Right.
the trainers at the gym saw me, coming in more consistently at first thing in the morning, and they were like, "What are you working out? I see you, cutting weight. You're being more disciplined. Your attitude's changed." And I showed them the product, and they were like, "Can we get some of these for our clients? I think this is such a cool idea." And they offered to pay $25 a deck, and so we just were like, "Why not take a stab and make this our business?" And ever since
Sick.
then, I've been learning and taking courses on how to get it onto Amazon, working with people to get it onto Shopify, and then we've gotten these amazing partnerships since then just by being in the yes mentality of yeah, I want to work with you, or going to a particular event and meeting the right person there. It's just been a hell of a journey, and I think 2023 is going to be a huge year for us.
That's great, dude. That's such a cool story,
Yeah.
man. And it's one of those things too where I talk about a lot of this on my shows. If you forget about the health and wellness aspect, you just happen to be able to start a business and to do something that you both are passionate about. And that's
Yeah.
very rare. And then when you start to do those things, man, things happen, man, whether that's
Yeah.
mentally, physically, financially, just things. There's usually never a downside to following your gut and doing
Yeah.
what you
I
love to
agree.
do. And it's very fulfilling. I kind of have a similar story in the aspect of like things weren't really going too well with my health,
Hmm.
where physically I was dealing with a lot of issues. And just this past year, I don't know if we talked about this prior to, but we just had a rough year. 2022 was rough. From the
Yeah.
beginning of the year, I got diagnosed with having a tumor in my lung, and that was back in
Wow.
January. Yeah, I don't know if I told you that. And
No.
then, so we were dealing with all that. Technically, it was like December 21.
Mhm.
And then, my father-in-law passed away while I was in the hospital dealing with
Yep.
this. And then, we kind of were in this weird thing where I got back and I had to get surgery to get this tumor removed. Thank goodness it wasn't cancerous, but I have a portion of my lung missing now.
Yeah.
And it's I thought everything was going to be fine with work, and then I ended up getting laid off with work, and that was
It
a great.
always comes in threes.
Always,
Life doesn't
dude.
care about your plan at all. It will
Yeah,
crush you when it wants to.
fuck yeah.
Oh my
So
God.
when
I
that
can
happened, I
totally
was
relate
like,
to that.
yeah, and it was almost like one of those things where that's when my health also started kind of, I was so passionate about working out all the time, and I gave up for a little bit, man, and I was more upset
Yeah.
that I couldn't be there for my wife when she needed to grieve, and then also too, she's trying to help me out, but she doesn't have the energy, and then in hindsight, we're also trying to have a kid, but that wasn't working out. We've been trying to have
Yeah.
a kid for a while, so it was like this whole year of just shit, and then once I started focusing on like what I wanted to do, like taking care of me. So like waking up every morning, not worrying about a job because I didn't have a job at this point. Taking care of my health, really figuring out my passion of what I wanted to do, and I landed
Yeah.
on podcasting and creating content. And not only that, but also I wanted to open up a business with my wife because we had this great idea, and that's when Meet Cute was born. Literally
Yeah.
after my surgery, after I got laid off a couple months afterwards, where we had it on the back burner, but we never really did anything with it because I was working, she was working, and I just didn't have
Yeah.
the time. So I use it as an opportunity to start this business that I was really passionate about, that we both wanted to do together. And everything else now has been great, and
Yeah.
I
Isn't
don't
that
want
funny?
to
You
say,
take the shot.
yeah,
Yeah. You take the shot on yourself, and it's like that first few months is scary as hell.
hmm
It's a ton of vulnerability, ton of insecurity, and then it starts to just click
yeah,
at a particular point. You start to hit your rhythm, and stuff starts to
yeah,
make sense, or you're constantly learning, and you build this self confidence. And for what you've just told me is you just had like one of the roughest years a person can go through.
Yeah.
And it's probably built a strong, strong foundation with your wife that a lot of
Yeah.
people are looking for.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really commend you for sticking through with it, man. And
Well,
I can totally empathize with what you went through, but I went through that at like 17, 18, 19.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And
it's tough.
I think everyone needs to go through it because I think it's important, not necessarily like father-in-law passing away and lung surgery, because all that kind of blows. I would never wish that upon my worst enemy. But,
Yeah,
in terms of like
same.
dealing with some sort of big, life-threatening almost crossroad, everyone needs to deal with that. And if you've dealt with that before and your life isn't where it is now, I think you probably didn't deal with that situation like you should have, because
Yeah,
I really,
agreed.
I've dealt with some gnarly shit. I'm 37 now. So in my
Mm,
20s and 30s, I've had crossroads. And I know for
yeah,
sure looking back now, I made the wrong decision because
yeah,
when that path that you take, it gets worse, you need to look back and say, I made the wrong decision back then.
yeah,
And you need to identify
yeah.
that. And here I
Well,
feel
just
like I
holding
made,
yourself accountable. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. And,
right. Be real with
not,
yourself.
yeah, not being afraid to take that leap either, because
Mhm.
the path that we're talking about, like I say there's a right path and a wrong path, but really there is no right or wrong path. It's our
No, it's your
perception of
path.
what, right, it's your path. And it's our perception of like what we think other people expect us to do. Like that's what
Yeah,
people don't understand is
yeah,
when a lot of people, including like my own family, was like, all right, Tony, lung surgery, you good now? Okay, you need to go find a job. You need to go get a
yeah.
401k.
You need to settle down even more.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
right.
I'm like,
Stabilize.
but I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And they go, well, you need to. I go, okay, well, I'm not gonna. And I decided not to do it. And again, am I making as much money as I did
Yeah,
when I worked for a corporate
you
job?
and me are
No.
the same person.
Yeah. We're probably like in a different universe, dude. It's like, this is the multiverse.
Yeah,
I'm the
exactly.
I'm the Tobey Maguire and you're the Andrew Garfield. Like we're the two Spider-Men fighting in the universe. But that's what's wild about it, man, is like you don't understand until you look back now. And I'm not making as much money as I did before. And I have
Yeah,
to work a little bit harder. But at least when I'm working these 10, 12-hour days, I actually like doing it.
yeah,
That's the key
yeah.
is,
You have a passion for it.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
that's what people don't understand is when you work 12 hours a day at a job that you hate, everything
it
else gets
kills
affected.
you.
Yeah, your
It
family,
kills you.
your spouse,
Yeah.
your kids, your relationships.
Hmm.
Fuck if you have more money. Who cares about that? Like it's all about
Yeah.
mental health because, when I started realizing my relationship with money is similar to food in the aspect of like, I need food to survive. I don't need
Yeah.
to enjoy food. And when you can look at money the same way, where you need money to survive, you do. You need to pay a mortgage and you need food and you need, a car and all that. You need some of that stuff. But you don't need a new iPhone. You don't need a new iPad.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't need a 5-story house. You're right when it's just you and your wife. Like there's certain things. And when you realize those
Mhm.
relationships between us and the materialistic stuff, if you just eradicate that and focus more on, I make less money, but I
Mhm.
love every minute of my day,
Yeah.
it's gonna pay
Quality of
tenfold.
life skyrockets. Yeah, the self-esteem gets boosted, your confidence is boosted. Problems that you thought were problems before aren't problems.
Yeah,
They're just opportunities to fix, right? Like
that's right.
I can totally, totally empathize with what you're saying right now because yeah, I look back at my mid-20s. I'm 34, and so I'm
Nice.
almost to your age, right? But so I'll be seeking your expertise in the next few years for everything else. But yeah, like it's funny. You said I wanted to take the shot on myself after surgery and after this really rough year. I'm sure the family was like, okay, time to like really settle down and get your finances in order, get the right job. It's got to be the perfect job. For me, one of the biggest realizations that I'm grateful I found out early was the company that you work for doesn't care about you. Like if it's a corporation, a big one,
Sure.
some of the ones that I've contracted for, they were quick to cut me,
Oh yeah.
right? One guy went on sabbatical. He was a VP of the department and he cut all contracts. And then the project scope will change because someone made a bad decision or didn't have the foresight. I got cut because of that. And my finances suffered from that. And so I kind of made this deal with myself. If I'm going to jump all into a business, I'm just not going to let this fail. I'm going to be adaptable. I'm going to learn. I'm going to leave my ego 10,000 feet that way and just have the confidence in myself to see this through. And it's been the most rewarding thing I've ever done.
Fuck yeah, man. Right on. Preach, bro.
Yeah. Yep.
And, again, that's, we look at like indigenous cultures and other, countries that don't have it as good as Americans do.
Yeah.
And you look at those folks and they are like happier than
Stoked.
a pig in shit. Dude. Like
They're so happy.
It's so weird. And, you don't even talk about, because people always like compare it to, like, let's say, I don't know, Ethiopia versus like Compton. No.
Yep.
Like, people don't understand. Compton's rough, sure, but they at least have like a house. It might be a crack house, but it's a house.
And community.
Community.
They've got
a
really strong identity.
They got shoes. Like, they have things. Places like Ethiopia and some other countries that aren't as fortunate, like third world crazy countries, they're trying to survive the day. Like, they don't care about cell service or like the worst is like if you're in a poor community and those same people go into the poor community and they're bitching and complaining about traffic. It's like, what?
Yeah, no, like for me, I love looking at other cultures that are totally opposite of mine. So like, totally empathize with what you're saying here. The Ethiopian community, the Polynesian community in Hawaii, their priorities aren't material possessions. It's family, food, and quality of life, right? Like, Christy and I have kind of battled in our relationship because I'm kind of distant with my family. We're still kind of navigating some stuff, but Christy loves spending time with her family. She can spend infinite hours with them, and they're like the best friends group.
Because it's part of the culture, right?
Yeah, I can't understand that at all, because my mom will tell you too, like, we can probably cap it out at 2.5 hours together, and it's like, I will see you in a month.
Yeah. Because weren't you just out in Hawaii with Chrissy? Seeing
I know
family?
it doesn't look like it, but I didn't get a tan. I got a nice sunburn on my back though.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's such a nice, going from my life here where I'm focusing on the most minute details of the job, of the business, and my pressures that I've put on myself. I didn't realize for this last trip how burnt out I was from 22, and it was a good burnt out. Like, not an unhealthy one, but I was tired.
Right.
I slept for like 12 to 14 hours a day for the first 3 days. And it was
probably because
great.
you had like your phone off and your email off and you weren't worried about anything. Yeah.
Yeah. My biggest concern was just like getting the rooster outside the window to shut the fuck up.
Well, and, I also realized little things too, right? Like, when you don't have a corporate job, because I talk a lot about health and wellness on this show, and, physical health, mental health, financial health, kind of the 3 pillars of my podcast. And when I got out of my corporate job, because I was in it for so long, like a lot of us, over a decade, right? And when I talk corporate job, like, usually when I'm in a job with anything, my wife says this is my sickness, to where I go 100%. Like, I did 3 podcasts today. So when I do a podcast, I fucking go.
Churn and burn, baby.
Yeah, dude. Like, I don't fuck around. I don't half-ass anything. So when I had a corporate job, they told me to get there at 8 o'clock. I was there at 7. When they told me to stay till 5, I was there till 6. So the reason I mention health and wellness on this so much is because now that I'm not in that world, and I could spend that extra hour in the morning, 2 hours in the morning with my wife, right? Maybe in bed. Maybe just not looking at the phone. Maybe just
having me
laying
time
with her.
back.
Yeah, me time. And then sometimes it's not that. Sometimes it's focusing on my health more, like doing ice plunges or sauna. And I wasn't able to do that in the morning in my corporate job because I had to hurry up and do my hair and get breakfast.
I have the morning commute, right? I got to get my break. Yeah, just cook.
So that alone, dude, it's worth the money that you're sacrificing when you're able to, subsidize that time and reallocate that to something more important. It's well worth the money for sure.
Yeah, dude. I remember being on my 56-minute commute. I had it down to the second. From here in West Seattle to Redmond, and I was the Tupperware king of like my oatmeal and berries, my scrambled eggs and rice, and I would just like eat it in the car. I'm like, this fucking sucks,
Yeah.
dude. Like
Me
I'm up
too.
before the sun is up, and I'm the sun's going down before I even leave the office. I was
Yeah.
miserable.
Yeah. Dude, we are
Oh
cut from
man.
the same cloth for sure. Because
Yeah.
when I worked at Monster Energy prior to me
Mhm.
getting laid off, and then before that I worked for Coca-Cola. So for 2 decades,
Yep.
I'm in these multi-billion-dollar companies making decent money, but not
Hmm.
enough that a $32 billion company they should be paying me more.
Yeah,
But
I
anyway,
was gonna say.
besides the point. But I did the same thing, dude. I literally packed a big ass Yeti and I had 3 lunches in there because I would snack every 2 to 3 hours. And it would either be the eggs in the morning or the oatmeal in the morning. And then for
Yep.
lunch, I was such a psychopath because when I worked at Coca-Cola, I had to run a route. I was an account manager.
Mhm.
So I had to run a route and I got up at 5 a.m. because I wanted to hit before any other stores. Like
Mhm.
store managers were there because I would merchandise and then I would sell to the store managers. And I would get there early and I would do my thing. And then, of course, I would have breakfast either on the way. But then lunch was hilarious because a lot of other people in that industry, in particular, if they're above 45, 50, is
Yep.
they would go to lunch. They would eat a fast food joint or they would go
Yep.
to a restaurant and they would just kind of like half ass the rest of the day. Me,
Yep.
I was like you. I had my grilled chicken breast, my rice, my veggies, and
Mhm.
I'm sitting there like a jabroni freaking eating in my car listening to a podcast for 20 minutes. Like I'm trying to rush because I'm like, I'm going to be the
Yep.
best. I'm going to be the best. And then now you realize in your 30s, you're like, for what?
Mhm.
I'm not even there
All the
anymore.
wisdom shows up as soon as you turn 30. That
Yeah.
big 3-0 is a blessing.
Well, you know why, right? Because your body's starting to die at the age of 30.
Yeah.
So
Knocking on death's door.
yeah, so things become less and less important when you're in your
Yeah.
30s. You start worrying about your health at that age.
Tolerance for bullshit just plummets.
Yes.
Yep.
And that's how like most people, like everyone's like, oh yeah, I waited till I was 30 and then I found the girl of my dreams. No, bro, you
No.
realized I got to do this thing.
Yeah, I got to do this. I'm lonely, or
Yeah.
I really want to. It's time to start doing that. The
I don't want to
societal
date
pressure
I
of
don't want to
like,
date anymore. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, Christy and I. So I don't know how long you and your wife have been together. We've been together 14 years, and not without its trials and tribulations, but it
Of
has
course.
been the best part of my life ever
That's
because
awesome.
she's super stable. She's independent.
Mm.
That's probably one of the best things about our relationship is we have this like unspoken agreement as to like I don't tell you what to do and you don't tell me what to do,
Mm.
but we are going to approach everything together, have our relationship meetings, and just communicate very clearly, which took a while to get through, like probably 6 years. But now we've got this really good relationship that's really, strong on communication, strong on respect. If it ever gets super rough, we're leaving emotions out, or if the emotions are too high and they're revving too high, like me, I'm Irish.
You're
Uh, I will I will just take a step back, or she'll just say, "You need 30 minutes, cool off, and we'll come back." It's great.
wow. Now, when you say relationship meetings, is that
Mhm.
this actually something that you guys do on a daily basis, weekly basis, or is that just something you're calling it?
Probably like once every 2 months.
And is it
Like if I'm
legit a
being real.
relationship meeting?
Yeah,
Like,
well,
what do
like
you mean
we'll
by? Because we don't
turn
do
off the
that, so I'm
TV.
curious.
It's awesome. It's such a good therapeutic practice that I think a lot of people need to do to focus back on yourselves as a unit, right? Because it's a partnership.
For
And
sure.
I think one really good thing to understand about relationships is it's never 50-50 all the time for effort putting into the relationship.
Mm.
It can ebb and flow between that 60-40, 70-30. And there are times, I'm sure a bunch of your listeners are going to relate to this, where it's 90-10, where you're totally disconnected and you're focusing on work, 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 or you're depressed,
That's right.
right? And your life is kicking your ass and you just can't be present. And you just have those meetings set where you can be like, hey, man, I'm not feeling heard from you. This is what I need from you right here. How can I help you be more engaged, kind of thing? Awesome
That's
practice. I
great.
would highly recommend it.
Yeah, it's a good practice, man, because that's the one thing I don't want to say we struggle with, but I mean, we've been together almost 8 years, I think.
Hmm.
But you know, the last like I said, the last year has been rough, and you know,
Yep.
I go back to all this crazy shit happened, and then we hit this like this I don't know, I don't want to say epiphany, that's probably the wrong word, but I at least did, where again I knew exactly what I wanted to do now, and I was going to go all in
Hmm.
on it, and it was going to be a little stressful for everybody, but
Yep.
you know, after all this happened, I mentioned all the good things that came from it, but
Yep.
also we've been trying to have a kid for so long, and I don't know if you noticed, but we just announced that she's pregnant.
Oh, congratulations. That's
Yeah, thanks,
awesome.
dude. So she's almost 13 weeks pregnant now.
Hell
But
yeah.
you know, we again, when I talk about we've tried, like we've gone through because my levels are good, her levels are good, and we just for whatever reason we couldn't make it happen, and we
Yeah.
went through IUIs and IVF and all that shit, and then eventually, ironically, it's when I realized I needed to get the stress off from work. I needed to
Dude,
work for
that,
myself. Like, isn't that
yeah.
weird how next thing you know, it worked?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I know 2 or 3 friends that have done the same thing where
yeah.
they just could not get it right. It just,
Mm,
the timing wasn't lined up. And Christy would lean over to me and just say, they need to stop trying.
yeah.
They just need to take the pressure off of themselves because, and it's kind of a cultural thing too. Like for Christy's Japanese, but born and raised on Hawaii. And we have a humongous amount of friends that are Filipino, and culturally family is everything, right? So you got to have kids by 25 or at least start by 25,
Of course.
and that sacrifices the career, which puts pressures on money, like
Yep.
all kinds of
A lot of pressure.
trickling down effect, right? So when you can't get pregnant, you just stress about it more, like you want
Yeah.
to try harder, you want to double down. And the second this one friend of mine said, we're just not gonna. I've accepted we're not gonna have a kid. She was pregnant. She was pregnant in a month. I was like, see, like,
That's what
take
happens.
a breath. Take a breath.
And that goes with everything too, man. And it's so weird how, you know, as much research as we did into the subject, you realize that women in particular, the last 2 decades, have drastically dropped in having children. Not necessarily because they don't
Yep.
want it, which is, you know, it's kind of a double-edged sword because
Yeah.
a lot of women want to focus more on their career, and that's fantastic. And maybe they
Yep.
don't want to have kids like they did a couple decades ago. But then contrast to that, there's a lot of women that do want to have kids that just physically can't. And
Yeah.
even though their ovaries and everything is beautiful and fine, and the guy's testosterone is, the levels are good, his sperm is good, like everything's good. But for some reason, we can't make more humans as much as we used to. And it fascinates me as
Yeah.
we kind of dived into that subject. And I'll let people do their own research because it is kind of subjective. But it was interesting when I looked at the numbers and I said, what's changed? And the only thing that's really changed is our health and our
Yeah.
nutrition. Like,
Yep.
those are the only
diet
variable.
is
Yeah.
the diet is like trash.
Yeah.
Like we're not eating prepared meals. We're not eating
Mhm.
clean meals or organic food. And
Yeah.
I'm guilty of this, right? Like there's
Sure.
some times where Chipotle just calls my name and
Of course.
I answer.
Yeah.
But then like for breakfast, I eat the same thing every day, no matter what. And it's just banana, 2 packets of oatmeal that are organic, and
Nice.
then like non-GMO organic blueberries, 4 to 5 eggs,
Nice.
and 2 cups of rice.
Every morning?
And so every morning, and a banana.
Do
Yeah,
you do that like first thing in the morning, or do you wait a few hours? How do you typically go?
coffee first.
Coffee first.
Coffee
Yeah.
before everything. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Do you do
Yeah.
intermittent fasting, or you do breakfast pretty early?
I didn't realize I was doing intermittent fasting. Christy called that out. She was, so I'll have my last meal by 7,
Okay.
and then I don't usually eat until 10:30 or 11.
Yeah.
And so
That's
I'm
a
getting, I'm
small
getting the
small
fasting
window.
period. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting the benefits of fasting. You know,
Mhm.
a lot of people when they eat super late and then they'll eat first thing in the morning, they think that fasting is 6 hours when you're sleeping. No, like
No.
you need to go at least double digits. Okay, at
Yeah.
least 10 hours.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been doing that for quite some time, and I see a lot of benefits because I realized when I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease a few years ago that the only diet I used that in quotes loosely for people just listening, because there is no diet. That's a stupid word, but lack of a better
Yeah.
term, the best diet way to eat for me is whole foods, plant-based.
Yep.
So when I started doing that, and then I started researching more about like intermittent fasting, and the relationship with food is different for every person, of course, but there is one common thing that we share, and that is we all need a certain amount of nutrients. And we've been brainwashed to think that that amount of nutrients and the calories and the type of food we need, we've been really brainwashed to think that we need to eat every 2 hours. And once you get in that habit of eating 5,000 calories a day, it's hard to break it. And once I broke that and started doing more intermittent fasting, and then my first meal is like very nutrient dense, like enough to get me through the next 6
sure
hours.
That first 2 weeks of trying that, or that first month of adjusting, brutal. That was like me when I quit soda. I was 6 cans a day forever, like 12 years. And it was Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper's king. This is not up for debate. I love that soda.
Of course.
I would drink it after it kills me. But I have stopped drinking soda for 3 straight years now, 3.5 years. And
good for you, man.
Yeah,
it was brutal.
That first 2 weeks, I was having legit withdrawals.
Oh yeah, it's definitely withdrawals. like a lot of people try to overanalyze and say, no, it's withdrawals. It's the same thing alcoholics go through. Like it's pretty gnarly. And especially with sugar. I mean, there's even a lot of studies that say sugar is sometimes more damaging than alcohol. You know, just like alcohol. I mean, of course, the only downside with alcohol is naturally you just can't you have to wean yourself off. You can't just cut it cold turkey. If you're really addicted, Coke and the other sodas, you could probably cut cold turkey and be fine, but you're gonna have like massive headaches, and
terrible
night sweats and crazy shit.
I gave myself an agreement. We were going to see like the Spider-Man in like 2019, something like that, and I was just like, you know what, you have a problem. We're gonna have our one last large movie theater Coke. And that's it. No refills, no nothing. Yeah. And once I did that, the next 2 weeks, I was just like, shit, I feel terrible. I can't sleep. Everything reacted poorly. Just my body shut down because I wasn't having an excess of how many grams of sugar, 240 grams of sugar a day.
Dude, when, again, you start doing your own research and you start thinking about this, when you're intaking, whether it's alcohol, soda, or any type of liquid that has calories, you just think about the amount of calories that you're supposed to intake. Now, I don't necessarily agree with the number, but let's say it's 2,000 calories a day because that's what we all been told, right? Food pyramid and all that shit. So if you're wasting 300 calories with soda and you're having that a couple times a day or whatever, that's 300 calories that serve no purpose to your body.
They don't help at all.
There's nothing in there that's good. It's not even water. Like if it was like 80% water, maybe. But it's not even that much water. It's all corn syrup and sugar and just bullshit.
Gunk. Yeah.
Gunk. And, again, if you start looking into the research and diving into it, same thing with other foods. Chipotle is great for sure. Is it the best option? I mean, compared to McDonald's.
Probably not.
Compared to McDonald's, maybe. Okay. But, there's other ways that you could do it, and we're just so conditioned, man, because Chipotle is good. I get it. But, rice, chicken, beans, cilantro, and avocado, like you're telling me you can't make a Chipotle bowl at home? Come on.
I could make it at home.
Of course you could make it at home. And it's probably going to be just as good, You just got to practice it, right?
I just need that steamer that they have for the tortilla. That's all I need.
That's a good steamer, that burrito. Hell yeah. But as you get older, I think our perceptions changes a lot, and it's through trial and error, and you got to figure it out on your own, and that's bound to happen. You just gotta go through the motions. But unfortunately, I think with the way food is right now, it's kind of scary because as excited I am to have a child come in this world, I'm also a little terrified because in 5 to 10 years, I don't know what the food supply is going to be. And
it's a very real issue.
It's serious. And a lot of people, think it's a joke because they're like, we're obese and in America, we're not going to run out of food. I'm not saying we're not going to run out of food. I'm saying that now we're at the point to where we're intaking barely food. we're intaking a lot of substance, but if you really dive down in those ingredients of like bread, for example, bread has like 17 ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
Like my dad makes his own bread. It's got 4
Was
ingredients.
was he a COVID sourdough maker?
Oh yeah, he made everything.
Did you notice that? Like everybody
Made their
in
own
that
bread.
when we
Yeah.
were living the longest march of our lives ever in 2020, that 4-year march, I swear everything on my feed was I'm making sourdough. And I was like, is this a thing?
It's
Or are people just like exploring this?
no, it's a very real thing, and it's very hard to do, by the way, sourdough. But
Yeah,
I
I didn't
mean,
know that either.
yeah, but bread as a whole, I mean, you can make that with 4 ingredients at home
Mm-hmm.
and in your oven. You don't need a special, like, you just need a certain pan that makes
Yeah.
bread. But the reason why people don't make that bread and then sell it to grocery stores is because it doesn't last that long on the shelf when it's
Yeah.
fresh. Same thing with food, any food. That's why, you know, canned veggies and frozen foods are so popular, is because you can keep it on the shelf for a year and it won't go
Yeah.
bad. So now you don't have to worry about spoiled food. And that's what grocery stores are worried about, is wasting food. They want to make money. And that's why you don't see a lot of big health stores and the big, you know, health fast food stores. Like that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
The
So like
McDonald's, these places.
I found this super funny, like, so Christy's brother and her dad love fishing. They've got their own like 20-foot fishing boat, and
Sick.
her dad is incredibly fiscally conservative, very disciplined. He doesn't spend money on anything except for fishing gear.
It's
Like
awesome.
he will drop top dollar on fishing gear, and their freezers, they've got 6. This is a very common thing in Hawaii also,
Gangster.
that I didn't realize. They're stocked with food, meats, and tons of fresh fish. And then they still go and have a fresh catch, and they'll eat that. Like so you never recycle through the
Yeah.
fish in the freezer. Yeah,
That's awesome.
just
That's the way to live,
hoarders
though, bro.
of bomb food.
Yeah, that's the way to live. And, you know,
Yeah.
again, that's something that terrifies me, to where I look at like not just factory farming, but I look at the fishing industry, and
Mhm.
you look
Yeah.
at like what's happening with large fish and mammals, like, you know, orcas, sharks, and all these, you know, these massive fish that need to eat other fish, but they can't find it anywhere.
Yep.
So now they're going to these like weird places of Florida and these colder areas that they usually don't go to, and they're changing their
Yep.
trajectory of their path because they're running out of fish. And it makes me think 10 years from now, 20 years from now, you know,
Yeah.
because a lot of people don't understand, we haven't been fishing for very long. That's what's weird. Like,
Yeah.
are you aware of this? We've only been like
Yeah.
really crazy, like fishing for actual fish for like 50 years. That's all.
Yep. Yeah.
So in that
Yeah, I
short
know.
amount of
It's,
time, we're running out of fish.
And it's because the sushi market, the demand on fresh fish, the demand on tuna is insane. And yeah, it just has this trickle effect of all the, you know, like I see all these fusion restaurants popping up, and it's like, if we're overfishing to hit fusion restaurant level fishing demand, I'm like, we're
terrifying.
so fucked.
It's terrifying. And, you know,
Yeah.
you can't rely on, and this is coming from a vegan, you can't rely on companies like Impossible and Beyond Meat. You can't rely on those folks to make fake meat, because even that is pumped full of processed bullshit to make it seem like it's real meat. Is it better than having a cow? I mean, I don't know. I guess studies will show 10
Yeah.
years from now if it is. But
Yeah.
we can't rely on that type of shit. Now there's even a company, I forget what it's called. I think it's like, I think it's Better Meat or something like that. But they're 3D printing meat. Have you seen this?
No.
It's actually 3D printing. It's real meat.
Okay. Let's
They
break
use
this down.
fat. Yeah, they use like real fat from a cellular level. Like they grow the part of the animal without actually killing it.
What the fuck?
Yeah, and then they'll 3D print like a steak that looks like a steak. Maybe I'll find a clip and I'll edit this up and I'll clip it in.
Yeah.
But they've made it. It's already done. Like they're doing it in Europe and I think Australia and other parts. But it's crazy that that's where we're going to. And I don't know if the reason is fully authentic, meaning I don't think we're doing it because they just want to do it. I think they're doing it
Yeah.
because smarter people than you and I are like looking 15 years from now, we're not going to have any food.
20 years in the yeah.
Yeah. So they're like, we need to do this or else like the world is going to end because we're going to all starve. I mean,
Well,
and
I'll see you on Mars, man.
yeah, dude. And, you know, by the way, as I'm talking through this, you know what I'm realizing? Like, I mean, the United States, we're fat and obese. We have
Yep.
plenty of food. And then, you know, Russia, they're eating China. That's a lot of people.
Mhm.
China. And
China.
So really, it's only like 4 countries that are just is eating the world dry because
Yeah.
a lot of the country is filled with, I mean, these third world countries, right? I mean, these islands, the Caribbean, you
And
know,
they eat sustainably.
yeah.
Also,
I mean, you know, places like
don't
in
eat
Africa,
beyond your means.
right?
Yep.
So it's not them that's causing the world to run out of food. It's just these few countries, and that is kind of terrifying because no matter what you believe in, let's say if the world did start 2,000 years ago, even though we were wrong, you know, before that.
Yeah.
But for some reason, we all accepted the fact that it is the year 2023. But
Yeah.
we're only 2,000 years old, let's say. So that means in 2,000 years, we've completely exacerbated most food on the planet. Like we're running out of fish. Factory farming isn't sustainable. We're gonna run out of plants, right? Because we can't do agriculture everywhere because we're building buildings on top of where we should be growing food. So
We're
now
experiencing heavier droughts, more severe droughts, or flooding. Yeah. So the farmland's getting wasted. Yeah. It's a mess.
Yeah, dude. So that's kind of what terrifies me about raising a kid soon. So we've actually been like, you know, growing our own food, which has been kind of exciting.
Nice.
And I think if we can all get to the point to where we can grow a few things here and there, you know, imagine if every single house had some sort of, you know,
Micro
garden.
garden. Yeah. Doesn't have to be crazy.
Right. Just, you know, I don't know, lettuce, kale, strawberries, maybe some celery and peppers and tomatoes, like, you know, the basics, nothing nuts.
Yeah.
And even if we were able to kind of consume that versus going to the store so much, because you can't really hate on these companies, right? Like the ones that are doing factory farming and, you know, the fast food chains like Chipotle we make fun of, but you can't really hate on them because they're trying to feed the world. They're trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And we're so fat that we want the food all the time.
Yeah, and I don't want to cook every single meal.
Yeah.
Right? This isn't 1950 anymore. I don't want to, you know, mom isn't home all the time. She's not in charge of making all the meals all the time.
Yeah. Exactly.
I don't want to do it after a day of pulling 14-hour work day. No.
Well, and that's another thing too, right? Like we're working so much that we're exhausting ourselves to where we don't want to cook our own food. And that's another thing I realized working for myself is now I like have time to grow my own food. And I have time to prepare meals and I have time to do all that stuff. So it all kind of just leads to just figuring out what you got to do to be a healthier human and then taking care of your family in the future. Because we can't really rely on these companies to look out for our best interests.
No. Yeah, I made that realization like 6 years ago, 4 years ago. And yeah, it's been a really nice lifestyle adjustment to where I'm thinking consciously of what steps can I take to make my day a little bit easier or make my year a little bit easier, push myself. What skills don't I know that I can teach myself? Right. I told you during 2020, I got so bored out of my mind that I just started learning how to build things. Yeah, right.
That's awesome.
I just, I didn't go the food growing route. I went, I don't even know how to use a hammer or a miter saw. So I'm going to just start building stuff in the backyard or rewiring my doorbell or building a planter box kind of thing. And then,
that's awesome.
I bit off way more than I could chew, but successfully it worked. I built a sauna in the backyard.
Dude, I saw that. It looks ridiculous, bro.
And it's not little. Cool. It's like, it's indestructible. It's like 6.5 feet, 7 feet tall, 8.5 feet long, 3.5 feet wide. So it can fit 3 people in it, and it cooks at about 176. So it's just hot enough.
Oh, sick. Yeah, just hot enough to where you're getting the benefits for sure.
Yeah, so I'll work out super hard at the gym, or I'll work out here in my living room that I converted into a gym, and just go cook for 15 to 20 right afterwards.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah. And then are you doing like cold therapy as well, or?
Yeah. I had to change up my routine after I learned some more information from who's that genius guy with the epic beard, the Viking, Andrew Huberman,
Oh,
I think it
Huberman, yeah.
was.
Huberman
Yeah,
Lab. Fuck yeah.
he knows a ton of stuff. But he was saying start with cold and end with cold, and
Hmm.
then do 3 to 4 minutes in the cold tub. I'll put about 5 to 6 bags during summertime of ice in there, and then I'll do 15 to 20 in the sauna and reheat myself. But I always end with the cold. If you're gonna lift, um, do the cold on like a recovery day.
That's
Don't do
right.
it right after weightlifting because you still want the blood flowing to send all the healthy hormones, the healing hormones, the building blocks to keep your muscle growing. You don't want to restrict that blood flow.
That's right. Yeah, you always want to do that on recovery days, never like post workout. I realized that too. It
Yeah,
took me a while, but yeah, Huberman's great though. His podcast is awesome for sure.
yeah,
Tons of great stuff on there. Yeah, I've been doing contrast therapy for quite some time, and it is really interesting the amount of the ripple effect it takes, or excuse me, that the ripple effect that it has on your everyday life. Like just doing cold therapy, then sauna, and then cold therapy. So like I'll do my ice barrel, same thing. I'll do a few bags, and then I'll get it to like 45, is maybe the
yeah.
lowest I'll get it, and then I'll hop in the sauna. I have an infrared; it only gets to like 150, 160, but I'll hop
Yeah,
in there. Kind of same things, and I'll do 3 sessions. I'll always end in cold,
yeah.
and then even if I really wanted to, I'll hop in the shower if I'm really sweaty
And
and
just
gross,
super cold. Yep.
super cold in the shower. And you do that in the morning on a recovery day, you sleep better that night and then days
Yeah.
afters too. Like there,
Yep.
the stress and anxiety of like the everyday life. That's the benefit of like cold therapy. A lot of people look at it and say, "Oh, it's just a trend because Joe Rogan and guys." No, man, it's been around
Yeah, I
for
get those comments too.
yeah, dude. It's been
Yeah,
around for so
I get
long,
the
man. You know, it's just the science finally is catching up to
yeah,
what everyone's been talking about. I mean,
yeah,
Eskimos had this right. Icelandic
yeah,
folks like Thor, they've been doing this shit for years. Athletes have been doing this ever
yeah,
since football was invented. Like cold therapy is a highly researched topic. Same thing with sauna, but it's super interesting when you actually do that and then have the benefits of it. It's hard to just like brushing your teeth. It's hard to get out of that routine.
yeah.
You just got to
Seriously,
get in it.
for me, I think I started doing this like 6 years ago, and I saw Laird Hamilton, that
Sure,
animal of a 60-year-old man, doing it,
beast.
just embarrassing us 30-year-olds.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
he likes to. His whole principle is he likes to stress the body out so much that it can react and adapt and recover faster and more efficiently.
yeah.
So he does like the underwater workout therapy where you're restricting airflow, and then he'll do full ice, and then he'll go into the sauna, and he put his assault bike in the sauna and do 20 minutes in there. He's ridiculous, but
Yeah.
like it's super inspiring, super motivating. I don't know if you saw the last video that I did. When we had that polar vortex come in from Canada.
I didn't see it in there.
Our Seattle went from like 45 to about 23 for a week, like 19 at night, 23 degrees, maxing out. Yeah, it was cold. So that was the best because I didn't have to buy ice. I could
Correct.
just wake up, get down to my boxers, and hop into the cold plunge. And
Yeah.
oh my God, I know I've got the routine down because I was set and comfortable within 30 seconds, like had the
Yeah.
breathing, pattern down. So yeah, it's just a matter of, like you said, creating the habit, getting familiar, and then,
Yeah.
that shock just kind of goes away
Yeah,
after a
and
while. It's
I
great.
find myself sometimes even after, doing it for a year or two, I find myself like not wanting to do it either.
Yeah.
Like I wake up every morning and I mean, some days I don't do it just because I don't have the time, but I'll end up getting it in either later that day if it's a recovery day or whatever. But usually I try to make it a habit of first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
And specifically the last like week, I find myself like getting up and just kind of like, I don't feel like fucking doing this. I really don't. And I'll fill up my tub. I have this ice barrel, this company ice barrel, and
Yeah.
I'll fill up my tub and I'll throw in the ice afterwards, and I'll let the temperature, marinate for a bit, and I'll look at it and I'll be like, oh, and then it's that 10 seconds that I realized that's where, and this is like with anything, that 10 seconds of like, wanting to jump in, that is worse than
Oh
anything
yeah,
else.
for sure. The anticipation getting into it
It's
is
the
the
worst.
best mental test I
Yeah.
think that I've incorporated in my day now or when I do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, there were moments during that cold week where I was like, "Fuck, dude, this is gonna suck,"
Yeah.
and I tell myself I just started my day with the hardest thing I'm gonna do,
That's right.
and the rest of my day I've got this huge endorphin pump. I feel great. Work
That's
isn't
right.
as stressful anymore. I've already done the hardest thing,
Yeah.
and
Everything else is smooth sailing.
I do remember though, like my fireplace, I had to turn it on after that 23-degree plunge because I couldn't clench my fingers. They
Yeah.
were just kind of locked like this. So yeah, I don't know. I know I have Viking blood in me, but that was still a very long time ago, and
Yeah.
I'm trying to get it back.
Yeah. Well, if you didn't have it before, you have it now. It's
Yeah,
in
I
you
got it
now.
now.
Yeah. And yeah, I forget who said it. Either it was a philosopher or maybe it was just a podcaster, but someone said it that really resonates, not just with that specific therapy, but just life in general, where the worst thing that's going to happen to you is the worst thing that's going to happen to you.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Like when you're a kid, you lose a red crayon. That was the worst thing that ever happened to you.
Yeah,
That
or
was
the Hot
like the
Wheels.
end. Yeah.
You
Or
lost
Hot
your
Wheels.
favorite Hot Wheels.
Oh my God. Yeah. Could you imagine like you're playing with Hot Wheels one day, the next day you can't find it and you're
Yep.
6 years old? That's the worst. That is like a family member passing away. And
Yep.
then you become 12 and now you get bullied at school and you come home
Yep.
crying. That was the
I know
worst.
all about that.
Now you forgot about the Hot Wheels.
Yeah,
That
that
was
wasn't
the
my
worst
biggest
thing.
problem.
Yeah.
The biggest problem was I legitimately in high school got the shit kicked out of me all the time. And it was a lot of verbal abuse too. Like
Sure.
it's pretty funny, looking back and seeing what the stress was back then.
Right.
I am so glad that I went through the shittiest years in high school
Right.
and didn't peak then because nothing's worse than that. That
Oh,
was
no.
the lowest I'm ever going to feel.
That's right.
I went
Yeah.
through like this 10-year period. You said that you just had your really hard period in 22, right?
Mhm.
And I'm really glad that you were able to navigate through that and come out of it so positively. And especially find this new like relationship and business relationship with your spouse. For me, my hardest years were 17, 18, and 19, where I went through a severe brain injury through blunt force trauma, and I had to go to the hospital, have I can't pronounce the actual scientific term. It's called a VP shunt installed, but it drains excess spinal fluid from a benign cyst that was in my left lobe and ruptured
Oh,
from this
fuck.
kick. And so I was in the hospital for like 3 weeks, 2 surgeries, and I still have the equipment in there. I don't think it works anymore, but I'm still here. And
Wow.
then the very next year, my dad died.
Oh,
And
fuck.
it was like, I want to say maybe a 2 day heads up. He just got sick or had been sick and didn't tell me that he had pulmonary fibrosis. And I got a brother, my older brother called me. He's an anesthesiologist and said, "You got to be on the next flight to Baltimore. Dad's not doing well." But at 19, I just thought he was sick. I didn't know in
Wow.
48 hours I was going to say goodbye to my dad. And that 19 is a very, formative year. You're supposed to be going to college. You're supposed to
Sure.
be talking to girls and partying and not worried about that. And
Yeah.
it was such a humbling moment that now my days are easy,
Yeah.
compared to what I've been through. And it gives you perspective, right? You're going to notice in the next 2 to 3 years that because of this surgery that you just went through and this health scare and the struggles with, conceiving a child, it's like, I've been through pretty much the hardest thing I'm going to go through.
That's right.
Right. And losing your
Yeah.
father-in-law, like life is
Yeah.
only going to look better
That's right.
now.
And you always kind of look at it like, how do you know when, like, is this the worst thing that's going to happen to me? I don't know. Probably not. There's probably going to be worse things,
Yeah.
but it's,
Life, something right now.
yeah, man. I mean, life is just shitty, dude. It's not
Yeah.
it's not supposed to be fair. I mean, you got to
It's not
remember, I mean,
Instagram. Yeah.
it's
It's
not
definitely not
Instagram.
Instagram.
That's a great way to say it. Yeah, because it's, and again, not only is it not fair, but it's such a privilege. It shouldn't be fair. Like as far as we know, there's 9 planets just in our solar system, right? Technically 8. I don't know. I think Pluto got.
No, it's 9.
Is it 9
I'm
now?
an 88 baby. Pluto's a planet.
Fuck yeah, it's a planet. Right on, Pluto. And one of my favorite Disney characters. So, but there's 9 planets in the solar system that we know about. Let's just say that's all we know about, even though we know there's infinite amount of solar systems with infinite amount of suns and stars and all that. But let's just say there's only 9. Let's just say.
Yeah.
So out of that 9, we're the only planet that we know of that has life. Out of all those 8 billion people on this little planet floating around in infinite black nothingness, you're born.
Yep.
And you're able to not get eaten by a tiger and a lion on a daily basis.
Yep.
That is such a fucking gift. And
your ancestors survived the worst.
Dude, thousands of ancestors, millions of people died. I mean, just in I forget what it was, the Ice Age. The number of people that died in the Ice Age is astronomical. Like, it's unfathomable. 20 million people or whatever it was. But just the fact that you're alive right now in this time, in this moment, that we're FaceTiming and we're talking and you're on the other side of the country. I'm in Florida, you're in Seattle. We're living in that moment right now. Who gives a shit if your plane is delayed? Who cares? Get this out of your head that you're entitled to something. You ain't entitled to shit. Because when we're gone, you and me, when we're gone, no one's going to care. There's going to be another 8 billion people that come in after us. Like, no one cares. We just have to live in the moment, be grateful that you're even allowed to live in this moment, and don't worry about anything else that you can't control.
And enjoy the coffee.
Fuck yeah, enjoy the coffee. Hell yeah. Even though I must say I've been switching, I've switched recently.
I remember you saying this,
Yeah, and I do regret it because coffee is great. But I've seen some great benefits about cutting out caffeine. Astronomically, for sure.
I'm sure they're there.
Dude,
But
even my pre-workout doesn't have caffeine.
I'll put it this way. Yeah. I just started coffee at 29 years old. So I'm going to enjoy my time with it.
You need time. Yeah, you need time.
Yeah.
And
it's great. I avoided it like the plague forever. And I was like,
I started when I was
I'm tired.
When I was 16 is when I started coffee.
Okay. So you've had your run.
Yeah. Well, same thing with booze, dude. Like, I've been actually booze free for over 100 days.
Nice. That's huge. That's huge.
That was a tough one for me, but I did that when my wife and I really started to, go hard on trying to have a kid and shit. And we just tried everything under the sun, and I was like, I'll do it with you. And meanwhile, I'm like, oh, fuck, this sucks. But then after about a month, not only do I not crave it, but I have.
Bingo. Yeah. It's the craving that'll kill you. Yeah. If you can navigate and be disciplined through those moments of weakness where it's it is 79 degrees and the sun's setting, it's Friday. I just want a cold ass Corona.
Oh, yeah.
And you can say no.
Right.
Perfect scenario to have the drink and you can say no. For sure. That's super powerful. My dad was I'm not saying that you were, but my dad was a recovering alcoholic since 77. Oh, and after being a lifetime drinker, and his it was one of the greatest accomplishments he's ever made.
Yeah, it's not easy, and it's really just the social pressure that is the hard part. But there's so many great alternatives now. Like I don't know if you're familiar with any non-alcoholic stuff, but forget about the mass, the mass corporations that are doing like Heineken has a Heineken Zero or whatever. Forget about those, because that to me is still. It's beer, but without the alcohol, so it doesn't have any benefits. It's just empty calories. But now there's some great companies. Like I've been drinking hop water, which is really cool, where it's actually it's got nootropics in it and L-theanine. So when it's sparkling water, it's sparkling water, but it's got hints of nootropics and adaptogens in it. So it kind of has the drinkability of like a hop beer. Yeah. But it's has
got the fizziness, right?
Right. So it gives you the aesthetics of it, but the L-theanine is, it's a amino acid, so it kind of calms you down and gives you that, almost not drunk feeling, but almost cool, man.
Yeah, I feel good. I feel good. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's this other company called Drink Monday that's really great, where it's a super cool alternative.
Cool name. I like that.
Oh yeah, it's great. Well, and I like it because it's just the fact of like it gives you the aesthetics of having like a high class drink, like
Yeah.
a tequila sunrise, or maybe, you know, whiskey neat, or like something like that, where it gives you the drinkability of like having something cool. And that to me has been better because when I do have friends over, now I could kind of like participate without feeling like a schmuck.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
it gives me,
exactly. And
because that's really the hard
I
part about drinking.
yeah, right, is the sociability of it, and how do I
Yeah,
navigate this like 1-year-old birthday party or this wedding
for
reception or
sure.
whatever
For sure.
without feeling out of place.
That's right.
Do you mind if I
That's right.
get this the
Oh
sun
yeah.
is like blinding the crap out of me.
No, get in. You're good.
Here we are.
No, you're good, dude. Yeah,
There we go.
it's definitely one of those things where we have been really brainwashed on a lot of things, not just with food, because we've talked a lot about that. We've talked a lot about working out, not working out, and drinking, and you know, even
Mhm.
smoking cigarettes. You know, we thought that was going to be the cool thing, you know, 50 years ago, and now we're realizing that it's one of the worst things you could do, and it's still legal. You know,
Yeah.
but that's what's crazy is we're being brainwashed, and no one's going to look out for yourself except
Mhm.
yourself as
Yep.
the only person. So you got to really take all this stuff in consideration. I'm not saying if you
So
smoke, you're a schmuck, or if you drink, you're a schmuck. I'm just saying know the side effects and what's going to come from it if you
so
continue to do
you
it.
said that you were able to get 100 days sober
Yeah.
on alcohol. Did your wife start that herself, or did she try and do like a couples thing together?
No, we both did it because we figured it might heighten our chances of her getting
Yeah.
pregnant, and I didn't want to drink in front of her because you know, it's bad enough that I'm mostly vegan and then
Yeah.
she's not, because I don't really encourage anybody to do a specific diet unless they need to.
Yeah.
Because I think the best diet is probably, you know, animal-based products and whole foods, less preservatives. You know, but I don't necessarily think everyone should be vegan. I don't know if it's that healthy for everybody. And you know, especially when you're having a kid, you don't want to decrease the amount of nutrients you have. So I'm like,
Exactly. Yeah.
so I'm like, all right, I'm not going to tell her to be vegan. Just like if she doesn't want to drink, I'm not going to drink in front of her. Same thing that she doesn't eat a steak in front of me. Like it's
Yeah. Yeah.
because
You're
she
bigger than I
knows.
am. Yeah. You're bigger than I am because
Yeah.
Christy had a really rough 2020 and a 2021. We thought that she just like all of a sudden just got exhausted and just started having all these horrible side effects and feelings with her body. And we thought she might have, you know, like, some form of cancer. So she started doing blood work. And it turned out after like a year of testing, she got officially diagnosed with Graves' disease, which
Oh
is
shit.
an autoimmune disease of the thyroid gland.
That's right.
And she waited for like another 6 months for the endocrinologist to prescribe her medication. There's only two, or cutting it out, doing radiation. There's like, it gets really intense really quick if you can't just like take the
Yeah.
medicine. So after a year and a half of navigating this quietly, we weren't, you know, telling anyone this. She turned out to be allergic to the medication that they prescribed. And so
Shut
there
the
it was
fuck
like the
up.
only option was no longer an option.
Wow.
And so she got so pissed off that she spent, I want to say, close to $5,000 on a juicer, a blender, an like a healing your gut
Right.
guidebook. And so what she did was genius. She basically just reset her entire lining by going only juice, a particular cocktail juice, herbal shots, and going to a naturopath. And over a course of 12 weeks, she was adding one thing to the concoction and seeing how the body responded. But it started out with like heavy soups and heavy, like clean noodles and just gut lining gelatin style stuff. Because
Totally.
apparently a lot of autoimmune diseases are caused by a leaky gut,
Yeah.
a hole in the gut lining, which I didn't know. I'm
Yeah.
sure a majority of Americans don't know that.
And
But
it's your intestines all the way to
yeah,
your esophagus. Yeah, I mean, it's that
it's the
whole,
whole system.
yeah, it's one path. Like a lot of people think, because we always tell, oh, it's the wrong pipe. No, bro, there's only one pipe. And that
Yeah,
pipe goes all the way
it
down to your
just
stomach.
wiggles. Yeah.
And then it goes to your intestines, and it's all connected, man. It's all one
Yeah.
system. So when something goes down like that, it's all connected for sure.
Yeah. And it
Yeah.
took a long time to get back to 100%, but holy shit.
Wow, that's
She
gnarly.
she was it got so bad to where she was having trouble sleeping, her body temperature was through the roof, her heart rate was elevated all the time, and she would describe getting out of bed and walking to the kitchen like running upstairs in a skyscraper. She was just exhausted all the time. Her hair was thinning out. I don't know if I mentioned this. She gained like 15 pounds and you just can't get it off, right? The autoimmune disease like just kind of makes you a little bit
Oh yeah.
heavier.
Oh yeah.
Nothing crazy, but just 15.
Yeah.
And so she went through all of like the mental aspects of that where it's like I feel terrible for myself and this
Totally.
isn't fair. I work out, I manage my diet really well. Why is this happening to me? And then she had this amazing perspective shift of like, I'm not going to let this define who I am. And I'm just going to double down on my diet. And getting back to your original point where you were saying, I'm not going to drink in front of her. I'm not going to eat this particular food in front of her.
Yep.
I'm a total asshole and I still haven't changed my diet at all. And I still eat everything that she can't, which is she's removed gluten, dairy, alcohol, and like high acidic foods. You know, anything that's going to tear away at that gut lining. And I'm over here with my tequila and my Heineken and my pizza and yeah.
And
So
and you
I
know,
could probably
listen,
be doing a little bit better there.
sure.
But
Well, and I always say this. I always go for people that always bust my balls about this type of stuff. I'm always like, listen, man, I had to kind of do this thing because of my disease when I was like early 30s.
yeah,
You're going to have to do
Crohn's
this.
is no joke. Crohn's is
Yeah.
pretty bad.
Crohn's is rough. Yeah. But I was like, you're going to have to do this when you're 50.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just doing it early because as you get older,
I've,
your doctors are going to tell you, hey, you have XYZ disease. Something's going to go down. You're going to have to intake more XYZ for your joints or more vitamin D because you're deficient or maybe more meat because you have low T. Like as you get older, your body shuts down. You're going to need more things. My body shut down early with Crohn's. So now I have to do this type of diet at an early age. So we all get there one day. Like one day you're not going to be able to have tequila, Chris. Sorry. It's going to happen.
don't say that.
So hey, listen, you could soak it up, but what's funny is now all the research that we're putting into all these type of substances that we intake is there is a lot of studies that are saying all this type of bullshit that we're doing at a young age, the alcohol, the cigarettes, the drugs, the prescriptions, the Advil, the Tylenol, all this shit is leading to our body shutting down faster.
Yeah.
So if you can eliminate that stuff at an early age, you're going to have a longer, healthier life.
So it's pretty funny that you mentioned the Advil and the like ibuprofen, Tylenol. I avoid painkillers like crazy. You're my age also. So you probably remember the early 2000s through 2008 opioid epidemic,
Of course.
where our high school generation, if you tore an ACL, popped your Achilles in football, or got in a car wreck or whatever, they were prescribing Oxycontin right away. And all that did was ruin our generation. And so
and they still do, by the way.
Yeah, I avoid all those painkillers. I remember during my brain surgery, they were like, yeah, so we've prescribed you this. You can hop right on it because this happened in 2007, my major injury. So peak opioid epidemic or like, prescribing it. We hadn't quite seen the repercussions yet. And I never touched this stuff. I think my mom threw out my prescription, to be totally honest.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, dude. I mean, even when I had my lung surgery just, a year ago, it actually be a year ago and a week or two. They gave me Oxy. They prescribed me Oxy.
Yep.
I didn't take it. And let me tell you.
See ya.
Let me tell you, it was probably the worst pain of my life. But you know what's worse than that? Getting addicted to Oxy.
Addiction.
Ending up fucking divorced with no money underneath a bridge. That'd be worse.
Yep.
So you have to deal with the pain. Pain's good, man. Pain that tells me that, there because one day, by the way, sorry to make this so dark, everybody, but one day you're not going to feel pain.
Yeah.
And I bet you're going to want to feel that pain.
Yeah.
Like
want to
one
feel anything.
day, yeah,
Yeah.
one day you're gonna be in this situation where you won't be able to feel shit, and
Hmm.
God forbid. I mean, it's all gonna happen to all of us, but it's
I just
gonna be
had
rough.
that thought. Actually, let's dive into that just for a second.
Let's do
I
it.
had that thought recently where I'm gonna have my last Monday. You're gonna have your last kiss. You're gonna have your last meal, and you don't know it, right? When it's gonna happen. If let's say like
Yeah,
you die of a random event,
yeah.
you're
It's
gonna have that, and the more you recognize and realize that that's gonna happen, you start to look at life a little bit more positively. I think it's a
yeah,
rough thought to begin with,
sure.
but it kind of makes you just appreciate and, like you said, not feed into the bullshit of like today's micro problem that isn't a problem. It's just an annoyance,
Yeah. Oh, that's
right?
so true. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that is dark, but it's not really as morbid as you think. At least for
yeah.
me. I mean, maybe the listener is negged out, but like me, I could relate with that for sure because I've been there just
Great
like you have.
podcast, man. Like,
I wanna cry. I can't believe it. Meanwhile, crickets.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
Finally, I could use the soundboard, man. This is great. Wicked, 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 whack.
yeah. We can navigate the soundboard today.
Yeah, but yeah, dude, it's true because you never know. And I honestly
Mhm.
thought when they told me, I'm sure you were in the same situation, but when they told me a year ago that, I remember, I'll never forget it. I'm traumatized by it. Me and my wife were in this room. I'm coughing, feel like I'm coughing up physically a lung
Yeah,
every day. And I can't obviously work out. I can't do anything. I'm bedridden. Every day I had a fever of 104 and I
yeah.
could not
Just
knock it
constant state
every
of
day.
uncomfortable.
Every day.
Yep.
And eventually, after so many doctor's visits and so much fucking medication, CT scans and x-rays, the doctor comes in and he goes, after my final x-ray, he goes, so I have some bad news.
Ugh.
We found a tumor in your lung. And
Yeah. Like
this
the
could
last thing you
be,
want to hear.
yeah. And I never forget, he goes, there's not really a whole lot we could do right now, but this is not good. And I go,
Yep.
what the And that was a doctor that
Yeah.
told me that, a specialist.
Yeah.
And me and my wife just looked at each other. And that moment right there, I told myself, as we were both bawling, I told
Yeah.
myself, like, this is it. These are going to be the last days of my life. This is cancer. I'm
Yeah.
done. And I accepted it. And I was like, from that moment forward, I kind of switched up everything. Nothing mattered at that moment except for my
Yeah.
wife and what was going on in my life right now. And then, thank goodness came back after it got removed and we got it tested. It wasn't cancerous. But when you have those moments, like I'm sure you had, thank you.
Yeah.
When you have those moments, you start to understand that, like you said, it could be your last Monday and it could be your
Yeah.
last meal. And when you have that appreciation of life moving forward after that, it was a gift. I hate to say it and I hate it happened to me, but it was a gift because I looked
Yeah.
at things completely different now than I did the day before I got that news.
Yeah. And so I had a similar type experience, not as severe. Yours is pretty intense. But for me, the doctor told me I had because I got kicked and then waited 5 days to go to the doctor, that typical male syndrome of like, I'm not hurt. Like, I'm fine.
I'm fine.
You're hurt.
You should see the other guy.
Yeah, you should see the other guy. He was fine. He looked great. So the doctor pretty much told me if I had gone another 24 hours, I would have died. And
Whoa.
the surgery was really intense. The recovery was terrible. And then the very next year, right, I had a 6-month period of recovery, getting back into the gym, moving. Like you went from benching your max to now you're just like moving an 8-pound dumbbell very carefully and slowly, and you're just building yourself back up. And almost a year later, my dad died, and I got to say goodbye to him in person, fortunately, but it gave me so much perspective on two things. Like I almost got to see myself die, which is really intense to navigate. Gives you this amazing new lease on life that you're breathing and you're cognitive and you get a second chance. And then you get to see the end of life with my dad passing away and seeing someone that had a pretty rough life see the end. And that was a very intense moment where it's like, he's scared. He's ready to go, but he's still, I don't think he had any regrets, but there was fear there. And it was
Yeah.
like, okay, cool. I don't want to be afraid in this moment. I want to be very confident and ready to go.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I try to live my life with experiences of like pushing myself, being super uncomfortable, saying yes to things, starting the business, asking Christy out on a date, and
Yeah.
reaching out to all these major athletes and having it work. Like, I want to live a very experience filled life, which has been very rewarding.
That's great, man. Yeah, and you
Yeah.
know, I'm sorry that happened to you, and kudos for everything that you've overcome as well. It's
Thank you.
it does make you question a lot of things for sure, because I started questioning in particular what is important, and
Yep.
you know, here's the problem, man. There's so much cool shit out there, right? Like
Yeah.
it's really easy to get soaked into not doing the ice plunge and not doing the sauna and not working out and not eating right. It's so easy, man, because there's so much cool shit out there. But
Yeah.
if you could just really take a step back and just relax and just
Yeah.
understand that all this stuff is fabricated. Everything's made up. The phone, this is all made up. Everything that's on this device, the TikToks and the photos and all that, it's bullshit. It doesn't, it
Yeah.
literally serves no purpose to your life and to be fulfilled. And I think if you ask every single, 80 or 90-year-old us as we get older, if you say, hey, Chris, Tony, when you guys were in your 30s, did you like that TikTok more or did you like hanging out with your wife more? I think we would all say hanging out with wifey. 100%,
Yep.
right? So it's like, what are you going to really look back at?
Hanging out with
80
wifey in
years old?
Hawaii. That's what I'm going to remember.
Dude, and I cannot say that. I'm sure that's like on the pillar.
That was
is
the
like,
best. That was the best life choice ever.
Ugh.
Was getting together with and spending the rest of my life with a woman from paradise. So the joke is, when I have to spend paid time off or take time off to visit in-laws, I'm not going to, somewhere super cold. I'm not going back home to Baltimore. I'm not going to the middle of nowhere. I'm going to paradise. It's like, oh God, this is terrible.
Yeah, bro.
Booked.
You got it made in the fucking shade with some lemonade,
Yeah.
bro. For sure.
Yeah.
Well, listen, man, I didn't even realize, but we're at like an hour and 18 minutes already. So time flies.
Yeah.
So, but I love what you've done with Sweat Deck. I want to get into kind of where people could find you as well. And of course, I'll leave all your links and everything in the episode notes. So everyone listening, check that out. If you're watching on YouTube, go to the description. You'll see all the links where you can visit Chris and his fiance's company, Sweat Deck. But before I let you go, I ask all my guests this. What is one thing that you've learned? And we've talked a little bit about it, but what is one thing that you've taken away in this life that has made you a better human?
Oh, great question. More of a practice. My superpower is being able to network with anybody. And I think the more connected you become with people that are complete strangers or totally opposite from you, the more rewarding your life is. So I love getting to know new people, and just by buying a complete stranger a cup of coffee, buying dinner for somebody when you're first meeting them, or just staying in touch with people. I'm a phone caller. I hate texting more than anything. So I keep in touch with my business partners or my friends, and they'll tell me every once in a while when they're not annoyed by it, because nobody likes seeing the phone call come in like, oh, God damn it, Chris is calling again. There goes an hour of my day. I'd say that that's probably the best practice that I do daily is I just keep in touch with people, and it doesn't have to be big, but saying yes to things that are uncomfortable or unfamiliar has been one of the best practices ever. It's gotten me my deal with Marshawn Lynch. It got me the deal with Lululemon. It got me my business, and that's been the most rewarding thing in my 30s. It's been the most challenging, but it's also been the coolest thing I've ever done.
That's great, man. What a great piece of advice, because I think we all could adapt that, and I think it's important that everyone just really takes a step back and you know, saying yes to things and being grateful and talking to friends. I'm a big preacher of that as well, on the phone
Hmm.
and connecting more. You know,
Yep.
we're living in a world of just getting disconnected, and we're getting farther away
Yep.
from each other. You look at everything that's happening with AI, and that's a whole nother podcast, but like all
Hmm.
this stuff is disconnecting us as humans. So the more we could stay connected and collaborate with each other, I think the happier we'll all be. So
Yeah.
great advice, man. And if you can, leave your social media handles, your site, all that jazz for people that can come take a look at you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can reach us at My Sweat Deck on IG, Sweat Deck on TikTok, and I think it's my personal one is Chris_Dietrich,
Nice.
DEITRICK. That's the best way to stay in touch.
Love it. Well, Chris, thanks so much for the time. Again, appreciate what you guys are doing with Sweat Deck. This is awesome because it's allowing people to do workouts at home with
Yeah.
little to no equipment and to get a fantastic workout. And I just think you guys are changing lives, man. So I wish you and the fiance nothing but success and happiness. And let's definitely do this again for sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciated being on here.
Absolutely, buddy. Enjoy the weekend, man.
You too.
Oh, hey there. First of all, thanks for making it to the end of this video. Not a lot of people do, according to the YouTube analytics, but I do want to say thanks for listening to this. There's some more episodes if you want to check those out, and they're all just as good. But if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Check out those timestamps below to reference some of the topics I talked about, as well as some discount links to some of our sponsors and affiliates. But thanks for listening to this episode, and we'll see you next time.